I still remember the day my family laughed at my declaration like it was some kind of absurd joke. We were seated around the mahogany dining table that had witnessed decades of Hawthorne family celebrations, disappointments, and arguments. The antique chandelier cast a gentle glow over the Sunday roast my mother had spent hours preparing. "I've accepted a position as a cleaning staff member," I announced, trying to keep my voice steady despite the nerves churning in my stomach. The silence lasted precisely 3 seconds before my father, Richard Hawthorne, prestigious dean of Westmore University's business school, choked on his wine. My mother, Eleanor, paused with her fork suspended midair, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching toward her meticulously styled hair. It was my brother James who broke the tension with a burst of laughter so sudden it startled our elderly cat dozing by the fireplace. "Good one, Fiona," he snickered, cutting into his roast beef. "Next you'll tell us you're joining the circus as a clown." "I'm serious," I insisted, straightening my shoulders. My mother's fork finally completed its journey to her plate with a delicate clink. "Darling, you graduated summa cum laude from Princeton. Your thesis on international business ethics was published in financial journals. And I'm starting as a cleaner at Meridian Global tomorrow morning." My father found his voice at last. "This is absurd, Fiona. I didn't fund your education for you to push a mop around some office. If this is some sort of rebellion." "It's a job, Dad. In this economy, I'm lucky to have one." "A job?" My sister Vivian, who had remained silent until now, couldn't hold back her incredulity. "You're a Hawthorne. We don't scrub toilets." The disdain in her voice made my cheeks burn. Vivian, 2 years my senior, had followed our father's meticulously planned career path to perfection. She was already an associate professor at Westmore, her trajectory as predictable as the seasons. "I start tomorrow at 6 a.m., I said, focusing on cutting my meat into perfectly even pieces. "Well," my mother said, dabbing at her lips with a linen napkin, "I suppose it's just a phase. You'll come to your senses soon enough." My father's disappointment was palpable, hanging over the table like a storm cloud. "This discussion is over," he declared in the same tone he used when concluding particularly contentious faculty meetings. Later that night, as I packed my sensible work clothes, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Fiona Elizabeth Hawthorne, 23 years old, with her mother's auburn hair and her father's stubborn jawline, about to embark on a path that would either prove to be the greatest mistake or the most brilliant decision of her life. I couldn't tell them the truth, that what appeared to be a janitorial position was actually the first phase of Meridian Global's highly secretive executive immersion program. Only 15 candidates worldwide had been selected, and we had been sworn to absolute secrecy. From the mailroom to the boardroom, we would experience every level of the company's operations over the next 18 months. "Begin at the foundation," CEO Eliza Chen had told us during the clandestine orientation, her keen eyes surveying the room. "Understand every cog in the machine before you presume to operate it." But my family could never know, not yet. The program's strict confidentiality agreement ensured that. So for now, I would endure their pity, their confusion, their thinly veiled contempt. My phone buzzed with a text from James, "Dad's having a meltdown in his study." "You've really done it this time, Fi." I shut off my phone and zipped my bag closed. Tomorrow would arrive soon enough, and with it, the beginning of the path I had chosen for myself. The alarm pierced the pre-dawn darkness at 4:30 a.m., and I caught myself wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. The house was silent as I slipped out, the autumn air crisp against my face. My ancient Honda Civic, a deliberate choice against my father's offers of newer models, protested before finally coughing to life. Meridian Global's headquarters dominated the city skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. The employee entrance at the back was considerably less impressive, a utilitarian door beside the loading docks. I slid my new ID card, which identified me only as maintenance staff, through the reader and stepped into my new reality. The locker room was already occupied by several other people donning the same Navy uniform. I recognized Akira Tanaka, a brilliant economics graduate from Tokyo University, attempting to fit his tall frame into the standardized uniform. He caught my eye and gave a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of our shared secret. "First day, darling?" A gravelly voice startled me. A woman in her 60s, with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun, assessed me with shrewd eyes. Her name tag read Margaret. "Yes, ma'am," I replied, straightening my posture instinctively. "Well, you look like you've never held a mop in your life, but we'll fix that." She handed me a laminated card. "You're on my team. 4th floor. Executive offices." My heart skipped. The 4th floor housed Meridian's top executives, including Eliza Chen herself. This was either incredible luck or a deliberately orchestrated part of the program. Margaret narrowed her eyes at me. "You'll want to tuck that hair up. Rules are rules." I quickly twisted my hair into a bun and followed Margaret to the service elevator. 4 other cleaners joined us, their faces showing varying degrees of fatigue and resignation. None were program participants. I'd memorized the faces of all 15 selectees during orientation. The elevator ascended in silence, stopping at the 4th floor with a cheerful ding that felt incongruous with the early hour. The executive floor was hushed and dim, the first employees not due for at least another hour. "Bathrooms first," Margaret instructed, wheeling a cart filled with supplies toward me. "Then vacuuming, dusting, and waste bins. You follow me today, learn the routine." I nodded, oddly nervous. Princeton hadn't prepared me for this, but then again, that was exactly the point of the program. "The executives arrive at 7:30, Margaret continued, pushing through the bathroom door. "By then, we need to be invisible." As I learned the proper technique for cleaning toilet bowls, circular motion, work from top to bottom, never splash, I couldn't help but think of Vivian's horrified expression. If she could see me now, on my knees in an executive bathroom, she'd probably have a conniption. By 7:15, we had worked our way through the eastern wing of offices. My back ached, my hands felt raw despite the gloves, and I had developed a newfound respect for the invisible workforce that kept the corporate world gleaming. "Not bad for your first day," Margaret conceded as we pushed our carts back toward the service area. "You're a quick learner." Just then, the elevator doors opened, revealing Eliza Chen herself, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, engaged in conversation with a silver-haired man I recognized as the company's CFO, Lawrence Bryant. Margaret and I pressed ourselves against the wall, heads bowed in the universal posture of service workers endeavoring to be invisible. I felt a curious twist of emotions, embarrassment at being seen in this role, yet pride in being part of something significant, even if no one else knew it. As they passed, I heard Chin say, "The Singapore merger is proving more complex than anticipated. The cultural differences alone." "Nothing we can't navigate," Bryant replied confidently. "The team in legal is preparing." Their voices faded as they turned the corner, but I had already filed the information away. Singapore merger. Cultural complexities. Legal challenges. This was exactly the kind of insider knowledge the program was designed to provide. Margaret gave me a curious look. "You were listening pretty intently there." I schooled my features. "Just curious about how executives talk," I said lightly. She snorted. Trust me, what they say in the hallways isn't half as interesting as what they say when they think no one's listening. These fancy types forget we exist most of the time. Little did she know that her observation had just provided me with my first valuable lesson in corporate anthropology. By the end of my first week, I had established a routine. Rise before dawn, endure the physical labor of cleaning, observe, listen, and take mental notes to transcribe later in the secure online portal designated for program participants. Each evening, I returned to my family home exhausted in ways I had never experienced in academia. You look awful, my mother remarked that Friday evening as I collapsed onto the sofa. This silly job is taking a toll on you. It's honest work, I replied, too tired to muster much defensiveness. It's beneath you, she countered, her voice softening with what sounded like genuine concern. Richard and I are worried about you, Fiona. I closed my eyes. I'm fine, Mom. Your father has connections, you know. One phone call and you could have a respectable position at the university. I bit back a retort about nepotism and privilege. I appreciate it, but I'm where I need to be right now. She sighed, that particular maternal sigh that communicated volumes of disappointment. Well, don't forget we have the Whitmore Charity Gala tomorrow night. You promised you'd attend. I had forgotten, actually, and the thought of squeezing into formal wear after spending the week hauling garbage bags and scrubbing floors was almost comical. But I had promised, and besides, the program encouraged participants to maintain their normal social lives to avoid raising suspicions. I'll be there, I assured her, already dreading the inevitable questions about my career choices from family friends and university colleagues. The Whitmore Foundation Gala was exactly as I remembered from previous years, a parade of wealth and influence disguised as philanthropy. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, nursing a flute of champagne, while scanning the crowd for familiar faces I might successfully avoid. Fiona Hawthorne, as I live and breathe. I turned to find Marcus Whitmore himself approaching, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his tuxedo impeccably tailored. As the heir to the Whitmore fortune and chairman of the foundation, his presence at these events was both expected and commanding. Mr. Whitmore, I greeted him with the polite smile I'd perfected over years of such functions. Lovely event as always. Always so formal, he chuckled. I've known you since you were in diapers, my dear. It's Marcus. I nodded, taking a sip of champagne to hide my discomfort. Marcus had been a fixture in my life growing up, a friend of my father's from their university days, an occasional dinner guest, a reliable presence at family celebrations. But something in his gaze had shifted when I'd reached adulthood, a subtle change that always left me slightly uneasy. I hear you've taken an unusual career path, he remarked, his voice dropping conspiratorially. I stiffened. News travels fast. In our circles? At the speed of light. He leaned closer. But between us, I've always admired your independent streak. So unlike your sister. Vivian has chosen a path that works for her, I replied diplomatically. Marcus waved a dismissive hand. Predictable. Safe. Boring. His eyes locked onto mine. You, on the other hand, have always been the intriguing one. Mr. Whitmore. Marcus, he corrected. Marcus, I conceded, if you'll excuse me, I should find my parents. His hand caught my elbow, firm but not forceful. Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet. A business associate who might be interested in your unique perspective. Before I could decline, Marcus was guiding me through the crowd toward a small group near the bar. With a start, I recognized Lawrence Bryant, Meridian Global CFO, engaged in conversation with several other men in tuxedos. Panic fluttered in my chest. If Bryant recognized me from the hallway encounter, the entire program could be compromised. Participants were explicitly forbidden from revealing their involvement, even if accidentally discovered. "Lawrence," Marcus called, "there's someone you simply must meet." Bryant turned, his expression cordial but unrecognizing as his eyes landed on me. Relief washed over me. To him, I had been just another invisible member of the cleaning staff, not worth a second glance or a space in his memory. "This is Fiona Hawthorne," Marcus continued. "Richard's younger daughter. Princeton graduate, brilliant mind, currently engaged in some sort of sociological experiment with the working class, I believe." I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment and anger. "A pleasure," Bryant said, shaking my hand with the firm, brief grip of a man accustomed to making quick assessments. "Fiona has always been our family's maverick," Marcus continued, his hand still resting inappropriately low on my back. "I thought you two might have an interesting conversation, given Meridian's, shall we say, unconventional approach to corporate culture." Bryant's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of increased interest. "Is that so? And what's your take on corporate culture, Ms. Hawthorne?" I chose my words carefully, acutely aware of the thin ice beneath my feet. "I believe the most successful organizations are those where leadership understands the experiences and contributions of employees at every level." Bryant raised an eyebrow. "An admirable sentiment. Though I suspect it's easier said than implemented." "Most worthwhile things are," I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. "Indeed." He pulled a business card from his inner pocket and handed it to me. "If you ever decide to move beyond your current position, I'd be interested in hearing more about your perspectives. Meridian is always looking for fresh thinking." I accepted the card, feeling as though I'd just navigated a minefield blindfolded. "Thank you, Mr. Bryant." As the conversation shifted to market trends in Asia, I excused myself and escaped to the restroom, locking myself in a stall to collect my thoughts. The irony wasn't lost on me, that the man who had walked past me as if I were invisible was now offering me a potential opportunity, all because of who I knew rather than what I had accomplished. This, I realized with crystal clarity, was precisely why Eliza Chen had designed the executive immersion program as she had. The invisibility of service work revealed truths about power, privilege, and perception that could never be learned in boardrooms or business schools. I tucked Bryant's card into my clutch, a souvenir of an illumination that would never appear in my official program reports. When I returned to the ballroom, my father intercepted me, his expression a mixture of concern and irritation. "Your mother tells me you're persisting with this cleaning job," he said without preamble. "I am." He sighed heavily. "Fiona, I've respected your independence, but this has gone far enough. You're becoming the subject of gossip. The dean's daughter, scrubbing floors like a what, Dad?" I challenged, my voice low but firm. "Like someone without a Princeton degree? Like someone whose father isn't Richard Hawthorne?" His expression hardened. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." I took a steadying breath. "Look, I know you don't understand my choices, but I'm asking you to respect them. It's difficult to respect choices that appear self-destructive. What's destructive about honest work? Nothing, when it's appropriate to one's capabilities." He ran a hand through his still thick silver hair, a gesture I recognized from childhood as a sign of his deepening frustration. "You're squandering your potential, Fiona." I wanted to tell him. The words pressed against my teeth, eager to escape, about the program, about Eliza Chen's vision, about how much I was learning by being invisible. But I had signed a confidentiality agreement, and more importantly, I needed to prove to myself that I could succeed without leveraging my family's name and connections. "I'm not," I said simply. "But I can't explain right now. I'm asking you to trust me." He studied my face for a long moment, the same penetrating gaze that had allegedly reduced doctoral candidates to tears during their dissertation defenses. "6 months," he said finally. "I'll give you 6 months to come to your senses. After that, we'll revisit this discussion." I nodded, recognizing the concession for what it was, not true understanding, but a temporary ceasefire. "Thank you." He straightened his bow tie, his signal that the personal conversation had concluded. "Now, there are several people you should speak with tonight. Lawrence Bryant seemed quite taken with you. Did you know he's on Meridian Global's executive team?" I suppressed a smile. "You don't say." Monday morning arrived with a familiar pre-dawn alarm and a new complexity. Bryant hadn't recognized me in my gala finery, but what if he made the connection when he saw me in my cleaning uniform? The program had safeguards for such situations, but I hoped to avoid testing them. "You're on the executive floor again," Margaret informed me as I changed into my uniform. "Chen's office needs special attention. Some big meeting today." My pulse quickened. "What kind of meeting?" Margaret gave me a curious look. "Does it matter? Our job is the same regardless." I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "Just making conversation." As we cleaned Eliza Chen's expansive corner office, I couldn't help but marvel at the contrast between her public and private spaces. The outer office was immaculate, minimalist, designed to impress and intimidate. But her inner sanctum revealed a different story: family photos, a well-worn paperback novel on the side table, a collection of smooth stones arranged on her desk. "She's not like the others," Margaret remarked, following my gaze. "Treats us like people, not furniture." "You like her," I observed. "As much as one can like someone who makes more in a day than I do in a year," Margaret replied dryly. "But yes, she has decency. It's rarer than you'd think at this level." As we finished, I noticed a presentation folder lying open on Chen's desk. "Singapore Acquisition Strategy," the cover read. Careful to maintain the exact position of the papers, I allowed myself a brief glance at the contents. Market analysis, cultural integration challenges, competitive landscape. Fragments of corporate strategy that would have been meaningless to me before the program, but now clicked into place like puzzle pieces. "Don't even think about it," Margaret warned, misinterpreting my interest as something more nefarious. "Security cameras everywhere. Not worth losing your job over office gossip." I nodded quickly, moving away from the desk. "Of course not. Sorry." 7 weeks, Margaret said as we wheeled our carts into the hallway. "Pardon?" "That's my record for how long Princeton types like you last in this job." Her eyes, sharp as tacks, fixed on me. "You're different, though. Not quite as entitled. Might make it to 8. I blinked, surprised both by her assessment and the backhanded compliment embedded within it. "I'm planning on staying a bit longer than that," I replied. She barked a laugh. "We'll see, won't we? Here they come. Make yourself scarce." We pressed ourselves against the wall as a procession of executives emerged from the elevator. Chen led the group, engaged in animated conversation with a striking woman in a red suit whom I recognized as Meridian's head of international relations. Bryant followed, accompanied by several others in dark formal wear. Bryant's eyes slid over me without pause, but Chen's gaze lingered for the briefest moment, a microscopic nod acknowledging my presence as both more and less than what appeared. Later that week, I received my first program evaluation through the secure portal. Subject demonstrates acute observational skills and appropriate discretion. Integration with regular staff proceeding as expected. Recommend continued placement in executive areas with increased access to strategic discussions. Satisfaction warmed me. This validation, invisible to everyone else in my life, meant more than any academic achievement ever had. At home, the atmosphere had shifted to a Cold War of sorts. My parents had ceased their active criticism but replaced it with pointed silences and barely concealed disappointment. Vivian had taken to speaking about me in the third person when I was present, as if my career choice had rendered me somehow less than fully present. "I suppose some people simply lack ambition," she remarked over breakfast one morning, buttering her toast with surgical precision. "It's almost admirable, in a way, embracing mediocrity so completely." I bit into my apple, choosing not to engage. "Vivian," my mother chided half-heartedly, "your sister is finding her way." "Seems she's found it," Vivian replied. "Right at the bottom of the corporate ladder." "Better than clinging to Dad's coattails," I muttered before I could stop myself. Vivian's head snapped up, eyes flashing. "Excuse me?" I set down my apple, suddenly tired of the charade. "You heard me. Your entire career has been carefully orchestrated by Dad. Same university, same department, same trajectory. At least I'm doing something on my own terms." "By cleaning toilets?" She laughed incredulously. "What exactly do you think you're proving, Fiona? That you can succeed at failing?" "That's enough," my father interrupted, lowering his newspaper. "Both of you." Vivian subsided with a self-satisfied smirk, secure in her position as the good daughter. I excused myself from the table, gathering my things for work. As I fumbled for my car keys, my father appeared in the hallway. "Your sister doesn't understand," he said quietly. "And truthfully, neither do I. But I've been speaking with some colleagues about you." My guard immediately went up. "What colleagues?" "Lawrence Bryant, for one. Apparently, you made quite an impression at the gala." I froze, uncertain how to respond. "He seemed to think you have interesting perspectives on corporate culture," my father continued. "I mentioned your current situation, and he seemed intrigued rather than put off." Relief washed over me. Bryant hadn't made the connection after all. "Well, that's nice to hear." My father studied me, his academic's eyes searching for patterns and meaning. "There's something you're not telling me, isn't there, Fiona?" For a moment, I considered breaking my silence, sharing the truth with the man who had, despite his rigid expectations, always encouraged my intellectual curiosity. But the moment passed, and I simply offered a non-committal smile. "I should get to work," I said instead. "Don't want to be late." As autumn deepened into winter, I settled into the rhythm of my double life. The physical demands of the cleaning work became less taxing as my body adapted. The mental challenge of observing, analyzing, and reporting corporate dynamics grew more fascinating each day. I was learning the company from the ground up, literally and figuratively. My most valuable education came from Margaret, though she had no idea she was teaching. Her decades in the role had given her an insider's knowledge of the company that no executive could match. "You want to know who really runs things," she said one morning as we cleaned the conference room after a particularly tense board meeting. "Not Chen, for all her fancy title. It's Harriet in executive administration and Julio in building services. They control the flow of everything: information, access, resources. The executives think they're in charge because they never see the machinery turning beneath them. I absorbed this wisdom like a sponge, adding it to my growing understanding of organizational dynamics. 3 months into my tenure, an opportunity arose that tested the boundaries of the program. A winter storm had left many employees stranded, including several key participants in a crisis meeting about the Singapore merger. Chen's assistant was frantically trying to assemble printed materials while fielding calls from executives stuck in traffic. "I need these duplicated and collated in 15 minutes, she told me, pushing a stack of documents across her desk without looking up from her computer. "I'm not administrative staff," I began. "You're a warm body with hands," she snapped. "Consider it a promotion from pushing a mop." Copiers down the hall. I hesitated only briefly before gathering the materials. This was precisely the kind of unexpected opportunity the program encouraged us to embrace, a legitimate chance to see confidential information while performing a needed service. As I sorted and stapled the merger briefings, I absorbed details that painted a complex picture of cultural conflicts, regulatory hurdles, and competitive pressures. The Singapore company, family-owned for generations, was resisting key integration points that Meridian considered non-negotiable. When I returned with the completed packets, Chen's assistant barely acknowledged me. "Put them in the conference room. Try not to disrupt anything." The conference room was already occupied by several executives I recognized, including Bryant, engaged in heated pre-meeting discussion. I kept my head down as I distributed the materials around the table. "The family's patriarch is the sticking point," Bryant was saying. "He doesn't trust our intentions regarding the manufacturing division. Because we haven't been transparent about our 5-year plan," another executive countered. "If we showed him..." "The 5-year plan involves significant restructuring," Bryant interjected. "Telling him now would confirm his worst fears." "So we lie?" a woman asked, her tone making it clear she found the suggestion distasteful. "We manage information strategically," Bryant corrected. "Business isn't about absolute transparency. It's about controlled narrative." I finished distributing the packets and moved toward the door, careful to maintain my invisibility. But as I reached for the handle, Bryant's voice stopped me. "Excuse me," he called. "You. Cleaning staff." I turned slowly, keeping my eyes appropriately lowered. "Sir?" He studied me for a long moment, his brow furrowed as if trying to place me. "Have we met before?" My heart rate doubled. "I clean this floor regularly, sir." "Perhaps that's it." He shook his head slowly. "No, it's something else." Then, with a dismissive wave, "Never mind. Could you bring more water pitchers before the meeting starts?" "Of course, sir." I escaped to the service area, trying to calm my frayed nerves. That had been close, too close. I needed to be more careful about direct interactions with executives who might have seen me in my other life. The incident faded from my immediate concerns as the program escalated in intensity. 6 months in, participants were occasionally given special assignments beyond our regular duties. Mine came in the form of a message through the secure portal: "Observe tomorrow's all-hands meeting from maintenance perspective. Document reactions across hierarchical levels. Pay special attention to Singapore announcement." The all-hands meeting was held in Meridian's grand auditorium, with every employee from custodial staff to C-suite executives required to attend. I sat with the cleaning team, conscious of the invisible barriers that separated us from the business-casual middle managers and the power-suited executives. Chin took the stage to thunderous applause, her commanding presence drawing all eyes. She began with standard corporate updates, quarterly results, new client acquisitions, employee recognitions. Then she paused, her expression growing more serious. As many of you know, we've been in negotiations to acquire Chang Industries in Singapore, she said. Today, I'm announcing that those negotiations have concluded, unsuccessfully. A murmur swept through the audience. This was unexpected. All internal indicators had suggested the merger was proceeding, albeit with complications. We entered these discussions with the best intentions, Chen continued. But it became clear that our vision for integration conflicted fundamentally with the Chang family's multigenerational legacy. Rather than force a partnership that would ultimately disappoint both sides, we've made the difficult decision to walk away. I glanced around, noting reactions. The executives showed practiced neutrality. Middle management looked concerned, likely calculating how this would affect departmental goals. My fellow cleaners seemed largely uninterested, the corporate strategy having little immediate impact on their daily lives. Margaret leaned toward me. Means nothing to us, but those suits are sweating bullets. See their faces? That merger was somebody's big promotion ticket. She was right. Looking more closely, I could see the strain beneath the executives' composed expressions. Bryant in particular looked grim, his shoulders tight beneath his impeccable suit. However, Chin continued, this development has led us to reconsider our expansion strategy in Southeast Asia. We're pleased to announce a new initiative focused on building partnerships rather than acquisitions, respecting the cultural values that make these family businesses successful while exploring opportunities for mutual growth. This pivot was presented as an exciting new direction, but I recognized it for what it was, a strategic recovery from a significant setback. I found myself admiring Chen's leadership even more, her ability to transform failure into opportunity without denying the reality of the situation. After the meeting, as we cleaned the auditorium, I observed the casual conversations that revealed the true organizational response. Executives spoke of strategic realignment while middle managers worried about quarterly targets. The cleaning staff discussed whether the company's fortunes would affect their job security. These big announcements always make me nervous, one of the older cleaners confided. When profits drop, we're the first to go. Chen's different, Margaret countered. When the tech bubble burst, she cut executive bonuses before laying off a single maintenance worker. Said something about foundations and structures I didn't quite follow, but the point was clear enough. I filed this information away, another piece of the complex puzzle I was assembling about Meridian's true corporate character. That evening, I carefully documented my observations in the program portal, noting the disconnect between the public messaging and private reactions, the varying concerns across hierarchical levels, and the insights gained from my unique vantage point. The response came swiftly, excellent analysis. Your perspective on cross-level communications particularly valuable. Be prepared for phase transition in coming weeks. Phase transition. According to the program guidelines, this meant I would soon be moving to a different role within the company, still concealed, but with new challenges and opportunities for learning. I found myself both excited and oddly reluctant. Despite the physical demands and social stigma, I had come to appreciate the cleaning role and the window it provided into the company's true operations. And I had developed genuine respect for Margaret and the others who performed this essential but invisible work day after day, year after year. The following Monday, Margaret met me in the locker room with an unexpected announcement. You're being reassigned, she said without preamble. Administrative pool. Seems someone noticed you have decent organizational skills. I feigned surprise. Really? I don't understand. Margaret shrugged. Happens sometimes. Good workers get pulled up. Though usually not Princeton grads slumming it for whatever reason. Her sharp eyes studied me. You lasted longer than I expected. Almost 6 months. I've appreciated learning from you, I said, the truth of it surprising me. A smile flickered across her weathered face. Yeah, well. You weren't the worst I've trained. She extended her hand. Good luck up there with the desk jockeys, Fiona. Don't forget us little people. I shook her hand, feeling strangely emotional. I won't. One more thing, she added, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Chin has a sweet tooth. Keeps dark chocolate in her bottom drawer. If you ever need to get on her good side, Swedish chocolate is her favorite. The fancy kind with sea salt. I smiled, tucking away this humanizing detail about the formidable CEO. Thanks for the tip. Don't mention it. Really. I'd get fired. She winked, then turned away, already focused on the day's tasks. My transition to the administrative pool marked the beginning of the program's second phase. I was assigned to a desk in the vast open-plan office where mid-level paperwork was processed, emails answered, and appointments managed. My new uniform consisted of modest business casual attire that kept me just as invisible as my cleaning uniform had, but in a different way. The administrative pool provided a different angle on the company's operations. As a cleaner, I had observed physical spaces and overheard fragments of conversation. As an administrator, I now had access to emails, calendars, and the digital infrastructure that kept Meridian running. I was particularly assigned to support departments connected to the failed Singapore merger and the new partnership initiative that had replaced it. This strategic placement allowed me to see firsthand how Meridian was adapting its approach based on the lessons learned from the Chang negotiations. One afternoon, as I sorted through emails flagging urgent matters for senior staff attention, a meeting notification popped up on my screen: Singapore Strategy Reevaluation, Confidential, Attendance, Chen, Bryant, International Division Heads. The meeting was scheduled for the following day in Chen's private conference room. I added the meeting to the appropriate calendars and continued with my tasks. Later, as I was preparing to leave, Bryant approached my desk, his expression distracted. I need the Singapore Cultural Sensitivity brief for tomorrow's meeting, he said without preamble. Of course, Mr. Bryant, I replied, keeping my tone professionally neutral. I'll locate that for you right away. As I searched the digital repository for the document, Bryant leaned against my desk, his gaze wandering around the office before suddenly focusing on me with startling intensity. Have we met somewhere outside Meridian? He asked abruptly. I kept my eyes on my screen, my pulse quickening. I don't believe so, sir. You remind me of someone. He shook his head. Never mind. About that brief. Here it is, sir, I said, perhaps too quickly, sending the document to the printer. Would you like me to add anything else to your preparation materials? No, that's all. He accepted the printed brief, still studying my face. Thank you, Miss Hawthorne, I supplied, immediately regretting the automatic response. Fiona Hawthorne. Recognition dawned in his eyes. Hawthorne. Any relation to Richard Hawthorne at Westmore University? I swallowed hard. He's my father. Bryant's eyebrows rose. I met his daughter at a function recently. Remarkable young woman. But she wasn't. He gestured vaguely at my workstation. My sister, Vivian, I said, the lie slipping out smoothly. Dad's very proud of her academic achievements. No, I meant you. His eyes narrowed. The charity gala. We spoke about corporate culture. You were wearing blue. The blood drained from my face. My carefully constructed world wobbled on its axis. Yes. That was me. Bryant studied me for a long moment, the pieces clicking into place. I see. His voice grew quiet, measured. Does Chin know about your connections? I hesitated, uncertain how to navigate this dangerous territory. The program rules offered no guidance for this exact situation. Mr. Bryant, I began carefully, I'd prefer not to discuss personal matters at work. Something shifted in his expression, respect, perhaps, or curiosity. Fair enough, Ms. Hawthorne. He tapped the brief against his palm. I look forward to your contributions to tomorrow's meeting. As he walked away, I released the breath I'd been holding. A complication, certainly, but perhaps not a catastrophe. That evening, I received an unexpected message through the program portal. Your cover has been compromised. Proceed as planned. Meeting tomorrow, 0600, Chen's office. When I arrived at Chen's office the next morning, Bryant was already there. They weren't surprised to see me, they'd been waiting. Ms. Hawthorne, Chen said, her voice betraying no emotion, it seems we've reached an inflection point in your program experience. Bryant leaned against the window, dawn light silhouetting his figure. Your family connections make your participation uniquely valuable. Chen's eyes held mine. The Singapore partnership requires someone who understands both corporate power and genuine service. Someone who's experienced both worlds. We'd like you to join the Singapore team, Bryant said simply. Not as an observer, but as a participant. As the sun broke fully over the horizon, illuminating the room in golden light, I understood that my journey had never been about disguise or deception. It had been about perspective, seeing from the bottom what could never be viewed from the top. I accept, I said, feeling the weight and opportunity of the moment. And in that pristine office, so far from my family's dining room where this all began, I finally understood what Eliza Chen had known all along. True leadership begins on your knees, with humility and an open heart.